Tuscarora Township Planning Commission meeting to order. Take a roll call. Craig Waldron.
Here.
Mike Shermany here. John Johns.
Here.
Francine Fuston.
Here.
Dan Nygott.
Here.
Okay, Kelly Ashford and Mike Bisner are absent tonight. So I'd like to approve the agenda with additions. We got 2 additions that we had. Recommendation to reappoint John Shams to a 3-year term and election of office. That would be after the...
I will make that motion. Approve the agenda with the noted changes.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, the first item we want to approve the February 2015 meeting minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read the minutes. I have a motion to approve the February 2015 meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's been approved. So the next item on the agenda is reappointing John Shams to a 3-year term. I recommend to the board that we reappoint him. Do I have a motion to reappoint John?
I'll make the motion. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item is to elect officers for the next coming year. Do we have anybody that wants to be the chairman?
You're a comic, right?
I missed the second on that. Francine?
I second it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion. We appoint Mike to another term as our chairman.
I'll second that. All in favor? I don't know. I took this job as a... Well,
You also have vice chair.
yeah, the next, the vice chairman. Right now, John Shams is the vice chairman. Do we have anyone else?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of appointing John Shams as the vice chairman?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to know if there's any public comments to the agenda items first before we get into the agenda item.
I would.
Okay, yeah,
My name is Pat Manette.
okay,
My wife Marcia and I are direct neighbors to the Hanson farm. We share 1,425 feet of frontage, of property line. And we would like to really, as emphatically as we can, voice our objections to what these folks are trying to do. We just think that that it's not the place for it. It's not a commercial place. It's a very, in our opinion, a very dangerous undertaking without everything set up just the way it should be. I just see that as a recipe for disaster. While we continue to be strong advocates for mental health assistance and mental access for all, we believe that the residential and vacation community of Grandview Beach is the wrong location for this proposed commercial business enterprise. Grandview Beach is a residential community that dates back over 100 years, and those properties have been passed through families for generations. Our concerns revolved around the impact the Hanson proposed facility will have on Grandview Beach, Indian River, Mullet Lake, and environmentally sensitive wetlands known as the spreads. Simply on a matter of scale, the Hanson property is much too small. Much of the Hansons' 33 acres of ponds, wetlands, and forest. Hansons are modeling their idea on other mental health farms around the county or country that have upward of 10 times the amount of land they are proposing to use. Those facilities don't have immediate neighbors. This one, because of the size of the facility of this magnitude, there is certainly a negative environmental impact with garbage, waste, and septic. With the potential upwards of 40 people using, including the patients, staff, and visitors expected to be on site, The impact for septic overflow into the spreads, the Indian River, Mullet Lake is a real concern. Grandview Beach relies on septic tanks, and as you know, there is no municipal sewer there. The Hansons have also proposed increasing their herds of livestock beyond the chickens, ducks, goats, and donkeys they already have on the property. The waste from the livestock alone will continue to harm our waterway and potential groundwater, possibly affecting tourism, but most certainly affecting the residents of Grandview Beach, who have come for generations to enjoy the clean water. Also making a negative impact will be the accumulation of solid waste holding garbage dumpsters in the complex. Blowing trash, coupled with rise in vermin population, certainly will spread litter in the woods and possibly disease to pets and children. Frequent visitations by large garbage trucks to service these dumpsters, along with numerous heavy delivery and service trucks to the facility, will have negative consequences on rural infrastructure, Grandview Beach Road. Further, we're told this facility will not be licensed by the state or federal government, and thus will be devoid of oversight or regulation. Further, we were told that this complex will not have fences or other security, and patients are free to come and go at will. From a personal property security and safety standpoint, we are concerned about patients leaving a non-secure facility unauthorized. For those patients, there are real danger with numerous water access points. For residents of Grandview Beach, there is a question of who these patients will be and what possible criminal or violent potential there may be. Ultimately, there will be potentially increased strain on township offices, police, fire, and certainly called to provide security for this low security facility. Clearly, the health, safety, and welfare and environment of the residents of Grandview Beach would be adversely affected if this proposed commercial development were okayed. While the Hansons have rights to understand certain projects on their property within reason, those rights should not infringe on the rights of hundreds of Grandview Beach residents and their families to enjoy themselves and their properties without fear of trepidation or what is lurking in the neighborhood. Additionally, these cottages have remained in families for generations, and these families are proud to call themselves Grandview Beach residents. If the Hansons' commercial medical property is allowed to go through, there will be many who will flee the community, and property taxes will be lost, and security, and all that kind of thing that's huge on our minds. Please consider this an appeal to the Planning Commission that the Hansons' Heritage Cove Farm is inconsistent with acceptable land use for the character and approved use of Grandview Beach. Thank you so much.
Just to let you know, one reason why we do have it on the agenda, we were asked by the County Planning Commission to comment if we felt we were, and that's one of the reasons the meeting's tonight, whether we decide to comment or not on this special use permit that he's asked for. So,
well, we appreciate being heard.
Okay,
we should try to maybe limit to 5. You probably
he was 5 minutes.
So
he was 5.
We should just make. We should set that up.
Is the committee familiar with the piece of land that that's talking about?
I hope so. I think some of us have looked at it.
It's a unique piece of property.
Yep, we know all about that.
I represent the South Point Association. There's 7 families that own about 1,000 feet, give or take, immediately adjacent to Pat, and all the way around, including what's called Lighthouser Point. Are you familiar with that?
I've driven down through there. I know a lot of people that live in that area.
Yeah, it is a unique and fragile piece of land. There's erosion going on, a lot of things are happening, but it doesn't lend itself to even single-family homes, let alone the impact of year-round usage by numbers of people. And it's probably, I've been on Mullet Lake since 1968, it's probably one of the most valuable pieces, ecologically speaking, that you'll find on any of the lakes.
I'm Dave Lurie. I live at 529 Grandview Beach Road. I'd like to focus really on the master plan. And this, I don't know, this is as large as I could get it. But if you look at the future use, it's in the property that Pat owns and the Hanson property. It is clearly delineated as single-family residential, not multifamily, not commercial. It's single-family residential, and there's also a sliver on here that's indicated as conservation and recreation. So nowhere on this map does it say we envision this as commercial, multifamily. In the lawsuit that the Hansons and their lawyers filed against the county, they describe it as a psychiatric rehabilitation facility. There's nothing in here about a psychiatric rehabilitation facility being located in this area. And whatever this Planning Commission decides to do regarding the Cheboygan County Planning Commission and the recommendation, I hope that they take this into consideration. There was a lot of work done on this plan. There were consultants, there was feedback from the community, and to me, this is the roadmap of where this community would like to go. And I hope it's considered by this Planning Commission. The other thing I'd like to do is give this Planning Commission a copy of 211 signatures. Most of these are Tuscarora Township citizens who strongly oppose this development for a number of reasons. This does not include all of the letters that had been sent to Cheboygan County from Grandview Beach residents who strongly oppose this. I would also say that not a single Grandview Beach resident, other than the Hansons, support this development. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just another thing, just to let you know, we don't have the power to approve or disapprove anything. All we are asked to do is to comment. So whether they take our comments or what we say to them, and to their task of deciding,
Right.
all we can do is recommend one way or another. So.
Ideally, what I'd like to see is a simple statement that it doesn't. This development does not conform with the master plan. It's black and white, to me at least, based on the master plan map. So, if that's the conclusion of the Planning Commission, that would be what we would recommend.
If you could find the time, it would be worth your while to look at the piece of land in question.
I have, and I think most of us have, sir. So, yeah, we've looked at it.
Yeah, we bought it back in the 70s with the idea of just preserving it because it doesn't lend itself to other usage.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
In a situation like this,
State your name and.
I'm sorry. My name is Michael Wesley. I am a landowner. I own several homes there on Grandview Beach, Pleasant Beach Court Road. And my question to the Planning Commission is, in an instant situation like this that you're coming up against, you do have recommendations where these people can locate their endeavor within the county. I mean, there's zoned areas for that type of thing in this county, correct?
As far as, there probably is. I mean, the only thing we can recommend is anything that goes on in Tuscarora Township, so.
Yeah, right.
And, recommend what our intent was with the master plan.
When a person applies for a special use permit, which
Well, the community is
special use permit is basically his permit for spot zoning. And, if the use that they're applying for doesn't fit in the spot that they want to put it, the master plan does have an area that they can, that is zoned for this type of activity.
It would seem to Mike's point, the planning commission could say, we welcome a facility like this, and we have land available where it would fit in the township. I think that was something that the planning commission is being pushed to provide other alternative sites.
Yeah, I'm sure there might be. I mean, but it's not up to us to decide that. It's the person who's going for the special use permit to decide where he wants to put, his facility, whether he wants to put it where he is, or it's his prerogative to ask for a special use permit.
I guess I'm really not too familiar with what a planning commission does. I thought they have a plan for the future and they try to encourage growth in the right way.
Well, our major responsibility, Craig, you can correct me because you've been on the commission for a lot longer than I have, is to set up the master plan and, for the future and go through each area which we think, as far as ordinances and zoning, to make sure it fits in with what we feel and the citizens of this township feel. We have once we go through the master plan, which was like a 6 months or a year process, then we had a public hearing that people could, voice their opinion on what we felt, and we took a lot of input from people, inside the community where they felt we should be, and we looked at the different areas, and if there was something that should have been changed or whatever, we did it. And usually the county accepts our master plan as is. They don't usually take anything, and change it for us. So. We're one of the only townships, other than Burke Township, that has their own master plan. I don't think the other ones really spend the time that we did.
Yeah, we've had a master plan. I think I worked on the first one, 90 or 91. We've had a number of them, and every zoning ordinance is supposed to be based on a master plan. And the master plan, they are totally different. And if you look at the current land use is going to be different in a lot of cases than future land use, and that's a sticky issue.
You're not proactive. You're just what's brought to you, you act on, and not looking for.
No, well, yeah, exactly. We don't. I mean, we're an advisory body only. We do not have township zoning, so all we can do is make a recommendation to the county as to whether we feel the use is compatible with our master plan. And as Mike said, a master plan, we've had a number of them. They're developed over years. They're looked at supposedly every 10 years. They're supposed to be updated. It's been looked at a couple times. I think we've done 3 or 4 revisions now of ours. And you try to project 20 years out. So in our master plan, there's a future land use map and a current land use map, and they will not match. They're not supposed to match. You're supposed to be projecting what changes will happen. And as far as us telling people where to locate something, that would not be in our criteria.
Right.
For one thing, most issues that are coming up before any of these kind of hearings, there's gray areas involved. That's why they're at the hearing. If it was black and white and there was a piece on the map that said you can locate this facility here, then there wouldn't be a lot of question. But most of the facilities or most of the businesses or uses that are coming before planning and zoning commissions under special use or under a variance are because they're not spelled out in a plan. Because, who knew 50 years ago that we would have to have wind or cell phone towers, and I mean there's always uses that are changing, so that's why you want to update your master plan every 10 years.
Or you can also update it within the 10 years.
Right.
So you can do a 5-year plan if you want to do it. We updated ours from 2010 to 2012 because we wanted to get the census involved. So we got the census in, so we made other changes that came in the 2 years, so we were able to update it because we didn't have the current census in our master plan, we were using something from 10 years early, and that was the real reason we updated it in 2012. So if something comes up, you know, that we would maybe, you know, amend it down the road.
Let's get the comments done and then we can.
Okay. Is there any more comments? Yes, sir.
Dave Campbell, 29 down South Grandview Beach. I am opposed to this for all the reasons that both Pat and Dave listed, so for the interest in time, I won't have to repeat them, but just for the record.
Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I learned about this matter being on the agenda a few hours ago from Mike Ridley, and clearly you guys were advised of this some period of time before that. Can you tell me when you were asked to put this on the agenda?
Well, we had a meeting planned for this month because we hadn't had one last month. We didn't have a quorum. So we had a meeting planned for this month. And we normally, last month, we really didn't have anything on the agenda. So within, when did we get that? About 3 or 4 days ago, we got a package from Debbie Tomlinson talking about the public hearing that's going to be November 4th. Because at this point, nothing had been said what was going on. We had talked to Steve Snell and Scott McNeil over the past. I know Dave has been asking me when we were going to have a meeting on this thing, and at the point, as you know, it's been tied up with court and everything else with this thing. So when we got the notice of the public hearing with all the items in there, we were asked, which we normally are when something goes forward, to comment. So we felt probably last Thursday, Friday, to put this on the agenda. The meeting was planned a month ago. You can ask Trish. We talked about it last month because we didn't have a quorum, right? So we had planned to have this meeting tonight. But when we got the package from the county, that's when we decided to put this on there and decide whether we want to comment on this or not. Because we really didn't have anything else to comment. And we did that back in February. We had a meeting when they did the clinic, and they were disputing the number of parking spots. So we wrote a letter to the township recommending they change the ordinance on parking spots for clinics. And it just came up,
and that's the way. Well, that's the way this commission has been set up for 20 years. It's our meetings are scheduled typically for. Now the county's changed the way they handle theirs.
We have to hold 4 meetings a year,
right? But we used to set them up on, like, the Thursday before their meeting was going to be on a Tuesday. That way, if there was anything on their agenda, they shipped it down to us. We don't do public notification. It's just they have scheduled meetings, and if nothing's on the agenda, we cancel the meeting. But we're required to have 4 a year, and the last one was canceled, so that's why this one was tonight.
So we decided that this one was way before. We had approved to do this one before anything came up about the public hearing, so.
Yes. I mean, the public hearing was scheduled weeks ago, and so this was something that's been known to the county. But I guess the only point I'd like to make is, given the short notice that I've received and the incorrect information that's been offered tonight to you, that I'd ask you that you not make any recommendation. Defer to the Planning Commission to make a decision based on the thorough information provided to them already. And if you feel that you need to make a recommendation, I would ask for an opportunity until Monday to provide you with a written response to some of these incorrect statements, so that you're not making a decision on only part of the record and part of the facts.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Sure.
My name is Sherry Lincoln. I have a business here in town, and as many of you know, I serve on some of the boards here in town. And I just listening to some of the feedback from the residents in Grandview, and I want to say first, I certainly appreciate that when there's a lot of facts and myth going around, that people become frightened and concerned about things when they, don't have all of the data. But I just want to make a couple observations. I find it really odd that with the number of cottages that are on the point, that and the number of residents there and the number of people who rent their cottages to different amounts of people, I really don't think that the amount of effect from the Hanson farm, whether they have 2 horses and 6 goats, or a group of community cottages, because that's really what we're talking about here, is a working farm with community cottages, not just so to call it a commercial treatment center is incorrect. It's a place where people can go and live, that people that can live right now in any of our neighborhoods wherever they want. These are not patients, they're adults who are able to live on their own but choose to have a community because it's more comfortable for them. And I just wanted to make that observation, that I don't really think it's fair to just blatantly say that it's going to affect the water. And also farm animals, there are rules for that already. And the other thing is, if it had been called an adult foster care, which it could have been in a certain number of units, it is permissible. There's one right across on the other side of the water that Tony owns. And I just also want to say that I think it's important that people bring facts to the table, but when people start talking about relegating certain groups of people to certain areas that are protected groups, by the way, and also start talking about people, almost everyone's families are touched by mental illness and some sort of handicap, or people who've had strokes or whatever it is, and to talk about people lurking and the fear and all the things that go along with it. I mean, the things that we don't have facts about or don't know, certainly there is fear for that. But I think we don't want to go back to the dark ages where people used to take any person who had schizophrenia or whatever and relegate them to a certain place or not out in public. And I find that offensive. In a lot of communities, they have mental illness drop-in centers and they run stores in town. And some of the people that came up in those groups are now managing those things and being spokespersons for their community. And I think it would be good to look at what other communities are doing with related to this. Thank you.
Jesus, that's one comment.
One comment per person.
One, that's it.
Yeah, you had your 5 minutes of fame, sir.
Even if you're chastised, you have no say.
Because you could keep going back and forth, argue who's right and who's wrong, and all we're looking for is public comments of what the people feel. And again, this is whether we recommend it or not. It's going to be up to our board what we feel. And from my standpoint, unless there's any more comments, is that I think we're going to look at the master plan and how we put together the master plan. So whether the intention was in that area to put in a farm or in the future, or what our intention was when we did the master plan 3 years ago. So does anybody have any comments to talk about that?
Closing the public.
Yeah, our public comment is closed.
Yeah, I'd say nobody has anything else to say. So
I guess if I could address what Larry
Sure.
said, the only thing I would say is I think things like the signatures, well, that's nice. I don't think they have any effect on what we're supposed to do.
Right.
We're supposed to look at our master plan. We're supposed to look at the use and see if it's compatible. So I would say that if anybody here in our discussions feels that there's a statement that changes the use, or that there's something that Larry should have a chance to respond to, then that would be, I think somebody should state that, and maybe we have to look at that, or we don't have to comment. If in fact that we're comparing it to the master plan, and none of the public comments affect that, or there's no, if we're looking at the application for what we feel the use is compared to the master plan, and we're capable of making that decision, then I think that's a decision we can make. I did talk to both Scott and Steve Schnell at the county today just to ask exactly what it was they wanted from us, if anything. And that's strictly, as we've discussed in the past, is strictly whether it's compatible with our master plan. Is really the only comment. We're not supposed to judge whether it's a mental illness place. We're not supposed to judge whether it meets ADA requirements. We're not supposed to judge any of that stuff. That's for them to determine. It wouldn't matter, anyway, in my opinion, it wouldn't matter whether this was a group of kids, whether it was a group of adults, whether it was a group of college kids. It's the use we're supposed to be looking at. It's the land use of the property that would be whether it's compatible with our master plan or it's not. That's what we're supposed to address.
If I read it right, the property is designated two different ways. One part is agricultural forestry, the other is lakes and streams. Is that correct?
No.
It's residential.
No. That's the current zoning.
That's the current zone.
Our master plan is residential and conservation residential.
Single family
residential.
Because we got the master plan over
That's
here.
correct.
That's what Dan's been
But it is
reading.
presently zoned two different
That doesn't.
ways.
That's not what we're supposed to look at. That's up to the county.
I understand that. I'm just asking the question.
Yes.
Okay.
The county has to make the determination if it fits within current zoning. All they're asking us for is how it relates to our master plan.
May I just ask a question about, your map doesn't show where the conservation and recreation portion of my property is according to your master plan, and where the residential is. Do you have a description, a legal description where that line is? Because we're certainly not on the ground. And
It's marked out on the.
You can see the lines better on the big map out on the wall.
Yeah, it's quite obvious where the parcels go.
But most of the land is going to be remaining in a conservancy kind of state.
There's one thing in here that within the future land use category, under single family, limited use outdoor recreation event facilities may be compatible when located on parcels 40 acres or larger. That's one thing. And in the conservation recreation, it doesn't say anything about any commercial usage that I can see just reading it, going over it right now. And this seems to be a commercial use to me.
I think there's a number of things that we have to determine. One, we have to determine whether it's a commercial use. Two, we have to determine whether it fits under single family or multifamily, because we have definitions for those things. I think those are issues before we could make any kind of a determination. And what we determine as far as our criteria or our master plan may be totally different than what the county zone is too. They're not going to necessarily match. I mean, my opinion is, reading through this, I think it's a stretch to make this a single-family residential use.
I agree.
It's more a commercial operation if you can classify it as a business.
Or at least a multifamily.
Well, it's
yeah.
beyond that, I think.
Our definition of single family says low density home, 1 acre lot.
I think we also have to go back and look through we did goals on each one of these too, so we should look at our goals under residential.
you just take it? I'm gonna make a copy for you.
Based on my opinion, based on what I, have read from the application to the special use permit and what we felt was future land use and where a master plan was, I don't think the two match as far as where, our goals were completely, were not compatible to what the special use permit is asking for. I think when we put this together, we wanted single-family residence and recreation, and there is a spot for agriculture and forestry, which I think is part of the, but I don't think we were in the, when we did this, that we felt that that type of facility could be put in there, so. But again, there's so many other variables on it, but like you said, only thing we're gonna agree on whether we do or not is what was our intent and what does the master plan state. So it's up to the county to decide with all the other items that are coming forward to them as far as whether they should approve it or not, so. So does anybody have?
Any other comments?
Do you have any comment?
I'm still reading.
Oh.
That's fine.
Yeah, we're over here reading the recreational goal.
Well, based on the goals that I read, it doesn't mention anything about having a farm for.
I don't know from the site plan whether any of the proposed uses make it over into the recreational portion. I've got the site plan here. I think it's close. No, they might. Our conservation recreation district, the very last sentence even says, and along the Indian River and Mullet Lake east of I-75, including the ecologically significant Indian River spreads. So, I mean,
I read that earlier.
That was addressed in our.
Where's the boat ramp? Is that on property? Most of the property?
The boat ramp?
There's a public access. Right up here at the tip of the.
No, it's not.
Are you talking about the one at Mullet Village?
Well, there's one up here in Tuscarora Township. There's a public access.
I don't know where you're looking, but we have an association boat ramp that's very shallow.
Maybe that's what, because they got it marked on here in our existing land use. Do we have a recommendation to make a comment, or do we? Want to abstain, or what does the board want to do?
So though your master plan pretty well defines what the intent of that area is supposed to be, R1, maybe R2, from what I've read. There's certainly exceeds that use of that land.
Based on when we put the master plan together, I don't think it conforms with how we wanted to put the future use of the master plan together. Whether that's a change today with the county, but our intent was not to change what we're basically doing over there with the residential area and agriculture. I mean, that's my opinion of it. You know, I read through the master plan again. I read through the permit. And if something does get done, it's going to be outside of our...
Can I see that the permit, please?
The application?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do classify it as a farm, as I read the application, with a working farm.
Right.
I would say that trying to decipher this map, about half of this is in most of the development would be in the conservation. Because if you look at the map, a continuation of the main straight portion of Grandview Beach Road is kind of where it changes from yellow to green.
Yeah.
You got a bigger one. So if you look at right here, it'd be this continuation.
Where the green and the yellow meet?
This is conservation, and that would be. So if you go up here,
Thank you.
This lady suggested that I give that.
quite tell.
It's going to be what we address.
That's the driveway right there, I would say. Because here's Grandview Beach Road swinging around. Right?
Yeah, because they're right at the end.
So it's back into here. So no, I would, maybe most of the development is outside. It's hard to,
residential.
it looks like most of it is in the residential. Because you can't really see where that section line, or whatever that line is. So I would say most of it's in there. I think the development portion would be mostly in the residential. I think that's the way we should look at it. That's
Single-family residence.
single family.
Okay,
Yep.
so it's in the not in the conservation.
I think most of it's in the residential, yes. Guys, anybody else have anything?
So we're saying, Dan, and we're talking that most of the development is in the single-family resident area.
And then it definitely would.
It did not fit our, I would say,
It doesn't
definitely does not
criteria
fit
for
our.
single-family residential, no.
And we both work on the master plan.
I wasn't here.
No,
but
I
the
worked
plan
on it, so did Craig. Craig and I both worked on it, and that wasn't even considered to be in there. When you're talking 12 cottages inside the
Well,
area.
even the cottages would probably meet the density requirements, but I think it's a combination of all of the uses together. I don't think fit with our master plan. I mean, you've got
But cottages are usually put on one, way out where it reads is on a 1 acre lot. Are each cottage going to be on a separate acre lot?
I don't know if they look at them that way or if they look at total density. And I think that's something we should be aware of. Whatever the decision is, that certainly is part of it, but is the overall use residential. I mean, there's a lot going on just besides the density. The density may be allowed. I mean, if you read even under our residential, it talks about minimum 1 acre lots, I believe.
Yeah,
Right, it
that's
does,
what
that's
we were
what I'm
saying.
saying.
All right, but
Yeah, we
if
found-
you're 24 parcels, 24
Right.
lots on 30-some acres,
Right,
you know.
it's,
Yeah, but
that's
it's not
right,
all
that's
I,
what we defined.
that's a
I mean, we're
density
getting into
issue.
a deep-
That's right, I
You get
understand.
into
But,
a
I
deep
mean-
area. I guess my point is, what was our intent when we put this together?
As long as the total was, I see that 1 acre per.
I see what you're
You know,
I think if you take the entire use between, as far as what we recommended as single family, if you take everything together, whether it be the individual cabins, whether it be staff, whether it be a commercial kitchen, whether it be animals, a workshop, all of that, I don't feel that's a residential use in keeping with our master
Right,
plan.
I'm in agreement.
I agree.
I would make them.
I'd say we should make a recommendation that we do not support this land use for that piece of property. I don't know how the wording is going to be.
I think our motion should be if we're going to make a motion, I think it should be very simple. I think it should just we do not feel it's compatible with our master plan.
That's all what I would say.
And I would make that motion. But I don't feel
That's
that
really all we're
the
qualified to
proposed,
do.
that's right. The rest of it's up to the county. The proposed use is not compatible with our long-term master plan, our future land use plan.
Yeah.
I don't make that in a motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're done.
We got anything else on there?
No, that's it. We had public comments, and I think we went through
Motion to adjourn?
support. Okay. So we need to put together a letter based on what we said.
Thank you, folks.
Well, it fits our master plan.
$4 colored chocolate.
I'm not going to get into that.